When we first started making calls to lawyers, we had some real deep discussions about how far we'd be willing to take this before we would back down. Would we lose our home? Would we go into medical bankruptcy? What would we be willing to do to continue the fight for our son? I'm Allison Lefevre. I am married to Bryce Lefevre. We have 3 little boys. They are 5, 4, and 2. Miles was born with spina bifida, which is a developmental birth defect. When we arrived home with Miles, we quickly learned that we needed home nursing assistance because of his level of acuity. He would code a lot. So I was, making lunch for my older child and administering CPR for Miles and then running back to finishing lunch. It wasn't conducive to keeping him alive. We needed to qualify for a large amount of home nursing for him to survive and also stay at home with us, which is where we wanted him. We began with appeals processes through the state, and that only took us so far where we were just being denied the services. And while I felt I could advocate for him, it was a lonely situation to be in. When you want a wheelchair for your son and the state says no, it's just salt in your wounds. I eventually became pregnant with our 3rd son, and we found out he was going to be born with the same birth defect. So that's when we decided we needed a lawyer. We started getting personal referrals to usually family lawyers, and we would talk to them and they'd say, "This is a really complex issue. I don't know how to deal with this." It was finally one friend that said, "You need to talk to this woman, Anne." I called Anne right away. She just asked me a couple sentences and said, "Exactly what words are being said to you?" And I told her, and she said, "Okay, Allison, I'm your lawyer now." That's how we got introduced to Anne.
The Division of Developmental Disabilities was proposing to terminate her nursing without any notice and without giving her an opportunity for a hearing. What the division was proposing was that they put their very young, very medically fragile child in a group home. The doctors and the medical professionals were not recommending it, and they absolutely did not want that to happen. When she related to me what had been said to her by the staff at the division, I think I was outraged initially just as a lawyer. She and her family had been denied their constitutional due process rights.
When she became involved in our case, really quickly, anyone from the state that was on our case, one, they knew who she was. And I even had one DDD worker that said, "You're really lucky that you have her on your side." We ultimately won, and that crossroad went in a really positive direction for us because now we have the home care we need to keep Miles alive and happy and thriving. So we feel very fancy having Anne.
Well, hi, I'm Terry Goddard. It's a pleasure to be here. Well, I guess I've been a fan of the center since it started. I was a great admirer of Herbie Lai back when it was just a glimmer in his eye, I guess you would say, that they should be a nonprofit center to take on the big legal challenges that the private firms wouldn't do and the public sector wasn't doing. To me, the Center for Law is pretty much equivalent to all that's best in the practice of law.
My name is Ann Ronan. I'm a staff attorney at the Arizona Center for Law and the Public Interest. My specialty is health law. I've done a wide range of advocacy on behalf of children and adults in obtaining basic primary health care, but also recently specializing in obtaining services for people with autism diagnoses, other mental health disorders, and developmental disabilities. The case that the center is doing on behalf of foster children involves the failure of the state, once they've taken custody of the children, to provide for their basic health care needs, their educational needs, safety needs. Our hope is that the court would order the Department of Child Safety to implement programs and services for kids early on when they first come into care that meet the holistic needs of these children so that they can be reunited with their families or adopted by other families with the support that the system should provide those families.
I'm Danny Edelman, and I'm the Executive Director of the Arizona Center for Law and the Public Interest. The center, about 2 years ago, brought a case that actually is a follow-up on a case that the center won more than 20 years ago. The basic idea is that the state is failing to adequately fund the capital needs of public schools. 15 to 20 years ago, the state put a lot of money, because of the center's case, into bringing schools up to standard. A lot of schools were rebuilt, a lot of roofs were rebuilt, and there was money that was going to be provided so that all school districts could keep their facilities up to standard. The legislature took all that money away. And so now those roofs that were put on 20 years ago, they're failing. The walls are failing. If you don't have money to bond, you have to scrimp and save and try to figure out how you're even going to paint your schools so that they remain waterproof. The state won't provide any money for capital unless that paint gets so bad that it's letting water infiltrate your walls. It makes no sense, and it doesn't abide by the Constitution. This is a case we've won before. It's outrageous that we have to bring it again, but we do need to bring it again.
My name is Jennifer Anderson, and I'm a staff attorney at the Arizona Center for Law and the Public Interest. In one of the matters that I'm working on, we advocated on behalf of a clean energy client to have the Arizona Corporation Commission pass an electric vehicle policy to encourage electric utilities to build electric vehicle infrastructure in places where it might not otherwise be built. Increasing the number of electric vehicles on the road is not good just from a clean energy standpoint. It also has significant environmental benefits and public health benefits. Why do I want to fight for the environment? It's not just the scenery. The environment is the air we breathe, it's the water we drink, it's the soil that we grow our food in. I think that's worth fighting for.
I'm Paul Eckstein. I was close to a founding member of the center. Herb Eli and Bruce Meyerson founded it in the spring of 1974. The center was unique at the time it was founded in that it wasn't a special purpose public interest law firm. It thought that it could do anything and everything, and it did it well. The executive directors of the center have worked very hard and have given the impression that the center is much larger than it actually is. Being like that character in those old Western movies who would be up in the hills firing at the bad guys down below and moving from tree to tree, giving the impression there were dozens of good guys up in the forest. Once one understands the work that the center has done, and once you think that work's important, you can't help but give and give generously.
My name is Stacy Gabriel, and I'm the president of the board of Arizona Center for Law and the Public Interest. The center is really, in my view, the last line of defense when the government has failed to do its job. These are issues that are important to all Arizonans. They affect all Arizonans equally.
If you look at the sweep of Arizona history in the last 50 years, it is the enduring factor, in my opinion, that has been there for good year in and year out. In education, in healthcare, that has changed the dynamic from what it would have been to what it is now.
The center is there to fight for people who otherwise have no one to fight for them. When there are rules and there are laws and there is our Constitution that says what the state must do, the center is there to hold the government accountable.
The center is a nonprofit law firm. It takes all of its cases on a pro bono basis. It doesn't charge its clients any money. So in order for us to be successful in pursuing the issues that we pursue, it's critical that we have the financial resources to take on much larger and deeper pocket opponents.
For people that are like us, who are just regular people, it's a godsend because we wouldn't be able to do this probably with a private attorney that we hired. As we face these battles ahead and as I try to build up confidence and energy to keep doing this, I always secretly hope Anna's still there for us because it's so nice to have that one person to call when you've already thrown your hands in there and thought, I can't do anything else, there is a person to turn to that creates positive outcomes for a situation like ours.